Welcome back, shop rats. Today we're back on our 1970 Dodge Challenger that we call Stitches because we're taking this car from a rusted out piece of junk in a junkyard and stitching it back together again, one hand fabricated piece at a time. It's not for everybody, and it's definitely not for the faint of heart. If you remember in our previous episodes, we have been working on finishing off the roof that was crushed in over a foot, and we had it all down to one small spot. In our last episode, we put in that reinforced roof bow, and today we're going to get that welded in, and we're going to start stitching together those slits that we made in the roof because we couldn't pop that one last dent out and shrink the metal enough without damaging the rest of the roof. So, that's what we're into today. Don't go away. I'm Mike.
This is My Cars Shop.
We have the roof bow in the car, held up in place with a couple of bottle jacks and stuff to hold it in place while all of that adhesive and glue dried. Today we're going to tack weld the ends of that. Well, we're going to weld the ends of that roof bow in place permanently, and then we're going to get on to fixing that roof, as I said. So the part that I'm dreading is actually welding up inside of there because it's a pain and it's not easy to get in and out of this car. I'm so tempted to blow these braces out of the door opening. I think this car is probably strong enough to be okay like that, but until it's back on its own wheels, I think it's probably best to just leave it because the car's been hanging here on this rotisserie for about 18 months now, and it's not taking its weight where it's designed to because it's hanging off the ends of the frame on both ends. So I would rather be a little safe than sorry, which means it's an inconvenient pain in the neck to weld inside the car. But we got to get her done, so we're going to get her done. Well, that was miserable and about as far from pretty as you can get, but it's in there. It's strong. It's going to be covered up by a headliner. Someday somebody will take a headliner out of this car and go, who in the world did that crap work? It's in there. That's all that matters to me. So if I wanted to go back and make it prettier, I could put a grinder on it. But what for? It's going to be hidden, and do I care what somebody 50 years from now thinks? Nope, I don't, because I'll be long dead and gone. I'm certainly not using that as an excuse for shoddy work, but again, everything has a context. And in the context of this car, it's not a show winner. It might win some shows when it's done, but it's not a concourse car. It's a fun car. As long as it's safe and as long as it's done, let's just go have fun. Again, not an excuse for crappy work. It's just really hard up in there. I'm not a good overhead welder anyway, and it's just a hard spot to get at, especially with this brace in here. But it's in there strong. If I make the decision once these things are out of here that I want to go back and do a better job on that, I certainly can. Probably won't, but I could. I need to take this brace out and put it over on the other side now because the end of that one is off just a little bit and it needs to be pushed up in place so that we can weld it. Well, I think we're at a point now where we're ready to go ahead and tackle stitching this back up. I'm not going 100% this direction because I'm going to want to come back over in here. I've been looking at how I'm going to want to cut this, and I think I've got it figured out that I will probably come from here and then just make a T-cut, and that should allow me to bring all that up without oil canning that. But let me tell you how stiff. I can make it oil can, yes, but that thing is stiff. And I mean, look up here, and I guarantee you go to any car and it's going to do that. The point of it with oil canning is it goes in and it sticks. This is popping right back. So I'm a little bit concerned about this. I may need to shrink this area right here. But I want to try to get this dealt with and see where all of this falls out once we get some relief and this metal can kind of naturally go where it needs to. So I got to do some cleanup and grinding to get this metal real clean here. Some of that glue came through from underneath, which I fully expected. So no big deal, but yeah, let's. I've got it cleaned up a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and trim down another disc for my grinder here. Boy, that's some big rocks there. Woohoo! All right, this is going to take me a minute. I'm going to get this trimmed down, and then we'll go after it again. That last disc was 36. This 24 is getting a much better bite. Okay, now I need to get a knife and just cut that glue out of there. Otherwise, we'll get contamination in our weld. We're ready to rock and roll here, so let's give her a shot. And remember, it's just little bzz, 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 you know, and we're going to move around so we don't create warpage. This could really easily suck in, and we don't want to do that because the whole point of this was to prevent, bring that up within 1/8 of an inch or less from the over quarter that it was down. So here we go. So I've gone over that with the grinder. It's nice and cool again. I tapped it down a little bit here and there. I think we're good. So I'm going to go back through now and put some more spots in. But my rule of thumb, when the area starts to be getting too hot to put your hand on, then it's time to quit. Now, of course, it's going to be hot when you first weld, but it's a matter of how much it retains that heat. And like I said, I could see there was a little bubble here, so I tinked it down a little bit. So I think we're good. I think we're okay. One weld here didn't stay. I'm going to have to go in there and push that up a little bit. But my goal is to get this part in here done, really. So I think we're okay. So I've just done my 4th round over there, spot welding that. I'm not sharing all that with you, obviously, but what I am going to share is a couple of things. After the last round, I was having problems with accuracy from the welder. The wire was not coming out in the same spot, and I found out my tip was loose. So I took time to clean that up, etc., etc. Got that all tightened down, and my wires come out exactly in the middle now, so that's good. This time around, I'm also having a problem seeing, and I've known for a while this helmet has been a problem. I don't know if it's the helmet itself, or if it's just that the lenses need to be cleaned or whatever. So I know I have some new ones here for it, but I don't know exactly where they're at right now. But I'm at least going to pull this apart and get this cleaned up and try to eliminate some of the glare on this thing. So while that's cooling, I'm going to take a little time to do that. And that's what I wanted to mention that to you is when you're doing something that's that intricate, huge. I mean, that piece of metal is 5 foot by 5 foot, probably more than one big, huge stamping, and you're working right in the middle of it. That can go south so fast if you're not careful. And so do a little bit, do something else, let it cool. I prefer not to blow it. Definitely don't want to quench it. I want to let that metal cool naturally and fall back into place. One of the problems with welding and then quenching, or welding and I find in some areas blowing it cold, is that it starts to put hardness into the metal. MIG welding already puts a lot of hardness into the MIG welds are hard compared to TIG welds. I'm not good enough with the TIG to stitch that up. Somebody else could and do a great job. So this is what we're doing. But you want to keep that heat out of there as much as possible. Not only let the area where the metal is, where the weld is, cool down, but also let the surrounding metal cool down. I did check the roof here a minute ago to see how it's feeling. I'm actually feeling that the areas that were soft in that roof, where they were, I wouldn't say they're oil canning, but where they would go down and pop back up again, are getting even stiffer. So my theory so far is paying off. We'll see if it pays off in the long run. A couple little pinholes to get. Yeah, a little bit of heat in there, not bad. It's not sucking in much. A little teeny bit up there, and that was probably my fault. There was a pinhole I was really struggling to get. So I'm going to let that cool down, and then I think we're going to get the hard stone grinder and grind the welds itself before we do any more with the 24 grit disc. I'm not intending to necessarily get this 100% gone. I just want all the little pinholes filled, and I want it strong. Once that's done, then we're going to go ahead and move on over and do this little cross in here and see how that goes. I do have one little piece that the grinding wheel caught earlier and flipped down, so I got to go inside the car and push that back out, but that's fine. If I have to put a little strip in here, I'm not worried about it. When I was cutting that apart, I ended up making a V in here I didn't intend to make, but that's just the way it is. So, but overall, I think we're good. I don't think there's anything high. It's like I said, it sucked down just a little bit right in there, and that was my fault. But if I wanted to put a puller on that and pop that up a little bit, I could. But remember that it was deeper than this in here. This was the worst part of it, and we're vastly better now. So I'm going to go switch my DeWalt grinder around to grinding stone, and we're going to touch this down and see where we're at. Thought the camera was on and it wasn't, but I got my little cross cut in here now, so we're going to have to flip the car down and then work on moving that metal up, from the other side there. But I think it's going to do the same thing that we did here. Had one little spot that sucked down. If I had a silver slapper, I could, but considering what this was, what it is, and that it's a vinyl top car, it's really not that bad, and I think I'm just going to leave it go at that. So my grinder fell out of my hands, and I ended up like here earlier, so I had to touch that up with some new rust conditioner. But otherwise, we're good. I got a couple little teeny pinholes in here, but I don't know if I'm going to mess with those or not. We'll see. But I want to get the rest of this raised up where I want it. We'll see where we go from there. Okay, I need to get a dolly. You see, when you're a grown man, it's okay to play with dollies too. There we go. Okay, whew, that was close. it as I was pounding this up, all of a sudden this oil can down and stayed, and it had me sweating my pants just from it's still a little bit, but I'm not done here yet. By the time I'm done with this, I think we're going to be all right. There was another spot back here that got really weak also, but the nice thing about this is if I have to, I'm quite confident I can shrink that a little bit, and so I think we're okay. But it had me sweating for just a minute. I'm like, oh no. But whew, yeah, I just kept working it and working it here. And as I was putting the heat into it and getting this welded up and getting this solidified, this really strengthened up. It's still a little bit weak right here. But again, we can shrink that a little bit in here and that'll pull that out. So it's all stitched up. Now I'm going to spin the car over the other way so I can grind it. But here's what we got. Nice and firm. A little bit of weakness there, but I think by the time I get this ground, it'll be fine. A little bit of weakness there. Same thing. Still some heat in here too. And the more that this cools, the more this is going to shrink, which is going to pull that metal. So the thing here is that this is no longer dented down in 1/4 of an inch. It is vastly improved. So I think overall it's a winner chicken dinner. So let's get that ground up. I did go back and fill some pits over here as well. So we got to grind that down. But I think the easiest way to grind this is going to be and then if we have any touch-up welding to do, we can do that from the other side. I'm really happy with that. As this cools down, I know this is going to pull in more. Yep, there it goes. And now look at how nice and firm that is. So I'm happy with that. It's a little low in here, but it's not bad. This is a lot better than it was. It's not perfect. I know it's not. I got to do a little cleanup in here with the wire wheel. But my next step now is I want to go ahead and get some Tiger hair on this section right in here just to get this leveled out a little bit and make sure that everything is going to be good. My rationale for doing it now rather than later is that way if there's any movement and things crack, I'll see it and we can go back and address it, do what we need to do to make it better. But it ain't perfect, but it is done. Didn't have any black primer in the shop today, so I just hit that with some gray just to keep it from surface rusting. We're going to have to sand that back down anyway, so no big deal. But it is a fill prime, so it will help with filling little pinholes and stuff anyway, so it'll be fine. But it's progress, so let me get a little cleanup with some soap and water and get some of this off of here, and then we'll talk about the next step we're going to have to make on this roof. The oil canning stuff is definitely gone, but we do have a low spot that starts down here and goes up into here. So I had started putting Tiger hair in there. I knew it was a little low, but it's a little lower than I want. I did shrink that some with a grinding disc, but not enough. So probably what I'm going to have to do is take this back out of here and shrink this some more to try to get that to pop up. Not a big deal, but it's just a little bit weak. It's not bad, but I would like to I can't touch that because it's still damp. Up in there it was firm, so I didn't notice it, and I wasn't really working my hands over it. But it comes in here and kind of, from what we fixed, which is nice and smooth now, it kind of dips down in here. So that'll be a project for another time. A lot of you have suggested those shrinking discs. I did want to take a minute and just talk about that. Shrinking discs are really good for taking out minor imperfections. The rule of thumb in the industry or amongst people that do metal work is if you have something that's a 1/16 of an inch or less, a shrinking disc will work to put the heat into it, tap, quench, the process that is. There's tons of videos how to do that online. If I was carriage building something, if I didn't have a roof available for this car, etc., 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 and I really wanted to get it good, we would get one of the nice big 9-inch shrinking discs and we would go at that and take a lot of these imperfections out. What I'm shooting for on this is 1/8 of an inch or less. So the things that I'm dealing with on here, like for example, this area here, It's actually got a couple little high spots from the crease, and it's low in here, okay? So what we need to do is, a shrinking disc isn't going to do that. This needs to be torch shrunk in here to get this to pop out of there. I've waffled back and forth on how I was going to do this, what I was going to share with you. There's a couple of different techniques. I did a lot of torch work up in here. Those videos are here. But I think in the interest of popping this up out of there the way I want to, we're going to do an episode. I'm going to have to grind some of this back out, obviously. I may have to grind this back out too. Probably not all of it. This was just for me to get a good feel for, is this going to work with the amount of mud I'm willing to live with in this one spot where it was caved in so bad. But I knew I was going to have to grind this back out once I saw where things were. So we're going to go through and take you through that process of popping this back out and giving this some more strength. It's actually weak from down in here. So my guess is we're probably going to have to do some shrinking around this area in here to get this to pop back up out the way we want. And we'll have to do some spots in the middle as well. We're going to make that its own video down the road a ways, but I wanted to mention that because a lot of you guys suggested using a shrinking disc. That's not going to do that. Shrinking discs are for minor imperfections, minor dents and things in the metal. When you've got something more severe like this, you've got to really use a more aggressive method, which is the torch method. So that's where we're at with that. I meant to say that earlier, and I just got into the project, and I get my mind going on what I'm doing, and I'm not always paying attention to what I'm saying. So I wanted to make sure that we made that a very clear point here. Somebody else also suggested using a slapping file, a shrinking slapping file, which I have coming in through the back window. I did consider doing that here, but I felt like cutting this apart was the best way to go. I don't think that's going to work well for this area here. It's too big. So torch is what we're going to use. That's going to do it for this one. I appreciate you being here. As always, around my car shop, it's about taking little bites. I know it doesn't always make for the sexiest videos, but I do believe that the way I share the episodes gives you a more realistic view of the process and the time involved. Obviously, for you, for a half an hour, 40-minute video, today I spent 5-6 hours out here working on this. Some of it I didn't share because it's already on many other episodes, and I'm trying to share new concepts, new ideas, and new techniques. So this was fun. I think overall it worked out pretty well. I didn't expect to have this in here. Could this here be a result of that? Yes, but no. Like I said, because of that dent that was in here before, I think this metal is just a bit stretched, and it's going that way. That'll do it. We'll catch you on the next one. Rock!